Hey, ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to do a lab on the urinary system. Now, if you feel comfortable with your knowledge, you can fast forward right to the lab, but I'm going to go through a quick refresher on how everything works. So here you are seeing the kidney. The blood goes into the kidney. They pick out the stuff that we want to get rid of, and all the stuff you want to get rid of comes down this ureter into your bladder so you can pee it away. But what actually gets rid of the stuff is called nephrons. Millions of these little filters. So this section blown up here and then blown up bigger. This is a yellow thing is a filter called a nephron that is going to take all the bad stuff out of your blood. So let's see how this thing actually works. Now, what you see here are the blood vessels, and branching off are the capillaries, the smallest blood vessels where transfer happens. So the capillaries inside this thing called the Bowman's capsule is where we are going to remove stuff out of the blood. Anything that's not blood goes into the nephron, and everything that is blood stays in the capillaries. That's a hot mess. Let's clean this up a bit. So we're removing all the stuff that's not blood, but that's a lot of good things and a lot of bad things, and we need to put the good things back. So here we got the different parts of the nephron that's going to put things back. This first part is the proximal convoluted tubule. Proximal just means closer to the beginning. Convoluted means it's all wiggly. And tubule is really small tube. So proximal convoluted tubule, and you have a distal convoluted tubule. And down here in between is known as the loop of Henle or the nephron loop. Either one's fine. The proximal convoluted tubule is going to put back all of the good things that you want to keep in your blood. Down here, the loop of Henle is going to put all of the water back that you want in your blood. And then anything that gets left behind travels through the distal convoluted tubule into this thing called the collecting duct. So let's see all of this happening. There is your waste and good things at the same time. So we take looking kind of messy. We take the good things and put the good things back in the blood. We put the water back in the blood, and we are left with waste that is traveling away from the nephron and to the next step. If we have millions of nephrons, that means we have millions of collecting ducts, and they're all microscopic all around here, and they're all pouring into this section called the renal pelvis, kind of a funnel, collecting all of the waste from all of the collecting ducts. The millions of collecting ducts are all pouring in here, and it funnels down into this tube called the ureter, which brings that waste, which now is urine, to your bladder. And from the outside, in that digestive system, those kidneys with all those nephrons are all the way back here on the either side, and that ureter that it's draining into, each kidney has a ureter, covering a hand, here and here, and they travel all the way down and start filling up this urinary bladder. And that's what we're going to see in this lab. Over here, this is going to be what we just saw, the end of it, that renal pelvis. That's right, guys, it looks nothing like it. That's because we are going to be using trash, that's right, actual trash to do the same jobs as your kidneys, as the nephrons. So since we're only talking about the nephrons, I'm outright telling you the rest of the parts. So after the nephrons, all that urine went into that renal pelvis, that funnel, right? And that's going to be our funnel right here, our renal pelvis, which went then into the ureter, which drains into our urinary bladder, which fills up with urine. Don't worry, it's not real urine, but it fills up with urine. Your job is to be the nephron. That's right. You are going to be, well, in normal classroom you will be, but I today will be handling the nephrons. And your job is going to be figuring out what of these pieces of trash represent what part of the nephron. So let's jump into the rules. All right, at this point, if you skipped my whole refresher and everything, you're good to go. What we are doing today is we are going to act out the functions of a nephron. So what is the nephron? The nephron is the functional structure within the kidney. Those functions include absorbing water and nutrients from the blood and giving nutrients that we want back into the blood. And we take everything out of the blood and we put what we want back. And we take all the water out of the blood and we put just the amount we want back. And then everything else that we don't want in the blood becomes urine and we pee it away. So what we are going to need to do is get materials for this. Now, first thing I have is this. This is a cup of water and beads and some rubber balls in here. So let me tell you what this represents. The tubes are going to be arteries going into whatever this structure is. You're going to have to tell me what this structure represents. Right. Inside of this is the beads. They represent all the stuff floating around in your blood. The rubber balls represent blood cells. These are red blood cells floating around. Right? So everything, all that stuff in your blood, all of your blood is in this cup. So you got to tell me what this is. And we are going to also need a funnel, which I fashioned out of the top of a water bottle. We are going to need a large plastic bottle, which I have cut a piece out of. Feel free to do this at home if you like, but not necessary. Just follow along with me. We are going to need a small plastic bottle that I cut the side out of. And we are going to need this cup that I already showed you. We are going to need 4 different colored spoons. Blue, white, purple, and green. 4 disposable pipettes. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Put the rest back. And we are going to need 1 empty cup labeled 2 because this big one was labeled 1. I'm going to be following along with the directions that I would have given you if you were in class with me. So if I seem a little off because I'm looking off to the side, that's why. Classroom materials. We are going to need everything over here. 1 large container to be the funnel, the renal pelvis. We are going to need a tube to be the ureter, where all the urine fills up in here in this filter from all the different nephrons, goes through the ureter and fills up this bucket, which represents your urinary bladder. And what we're going to do with all this stuff is all the functions of the nephron. It is going to be your job to tell me which part of the nephron this random piece of trash represents based on the function. What is this thing doing compared to what that part of the nephron does? You got to figure out that, not based on what it looks like, but what it is doing. First thing I'm going to do is take this from the arteries, bringing all the blood in. So I'm going to take all the contents that are in here and run it through my funnel and fill it up in this big bottle. All right, so you will see that almost everything that was in cup number 1 managed to fit through the filter except my 2 rubber bouncy balls in here, right, which I already told you represented the red blood cells. So that means all the blood went in, everything went in here, but the blood did not. Right? The blood did not fit through. So the blood is going to continue on with the bloodstream. So everything else left the blood. This means this was part of the nephron, and it's going to be your job to tell me what part this was. I mean, this is also part of the nephron. This thing now has all the stuff that used to be in your blood. So liquids and nutrients and salts and hormones and some things you want to keep, some things you don't want to keep. And so now we are going to have to start putting back the stuff we do want to keep. So I'm going to use these different color spoons, my blue, green, purple, and white, to retrieve the matching beads. Use the white to pick up all the white ones, green to pick up the green ones, blue, purple, you get the idea. And I'm going to put it back into cup number 1. So I just used blue to retrieve the blue beads. And now I'm going to use purple for the purple. Use green for the green. And white for the white. So now I have everything that my body wanted to keep back into cup number 1. So your first set of questions on your, I didn't make it yet, so Google Doc, Google Form, whatever we're using. If those red bouncy balls represented blood cells, and then all this stuff, the beads, are the things that we wanted to keep in our body, we put it all back in here. What did cup number 1 represent? We took everything out of cup number 1 and we put back all the stuff we want to keep in cup number 1. So what is cup number 1? Second question, what part of the nephron did this funnel represent? Where we poured all the contents of number 1 in, and the funnel took everything except the blood cells and put it in here. So what did this funnel represent? This is a part of the nephron. Next question, what part of the nephron did this large bottle represent? Remember what we did? We put everything that we got out of the blood in here, and we use these spoons to put back just the ones we want. So I have a blue spoon because I want those blue material back in my body. I have a purple spoon because I wanted purple material back in the body. So this is where we put material back. What part of your nephron does that? Now, if these beads that we wanted to keep represents nutrients and hormones and all of the things that we want to keep in our body, what did these spoons represent? What is inside of this part of the nephron that grabs the nutrients that we want? And why do you think I color-coded this? Why do you think I have a green spoon for the green beads and a white spoon for the white beads and the purple for the purple and the blue for the blue? Why do you think I did that? Now for the next part, now that I got rid of all the nutrients and things that I want to keep, I still have remaining stuff. So now we're going to move on to the next part of the nephron. And I'm going to pour all my material into the next bottle. And now I am going to use the pipettes to remove water from this part of the nephron. In your directions, I said to have 4 pipettes. That's because we were originally going to be in groups of 4 in class. I'm by myself, but I'm still going to use all 4 for the sake of speed. Ready? And I'm going to remove 4 pipettes of water each. So that's going to be 16 altogether for me. So that's 4. 16 pipettes of water removed. So what's left over, whatever water is left over in here is just going to stay because I only wanted that much water back in my body, right? All this rest of this stuff is extra. So now for the questions, continued questions, next set. What does cup number 1 represent? I've already asked you this. I'm asking again to see if you still agree with your own answer. All right? So what is cup number 1? What do you think it is? Second question, what part of the nephron does this smaller bottle represent? Remember, I took water out of here. That's all I did. So everything else stayed behind. What part of the nephron removes water and puts it back in here? Next question, what is this process called of removing water through this membrane and into this one? What do we call that? The movement of water from point A to point B across the membrane. What do all of these remaining beads represent? If I put back all the stuff that I want to keep in the body back in here, what is this now? Now I no longer have anything useful that I want in here. What is all this stuff? And now I need to remove this stuff because remember, this is just the part that removes water. And now that we did that, we need to continue into the next part of the nephron. I'm pouring it into this cup labeled number 2. And I'm going to take cup number 2 and the contents, and I'm going to pour it into the renal pelvis, directly into the renal pelvis, which is going to bring everything down this ureter and into your urinary bladder, where all those beads are just sitting and waiting for you to go to the bathroom to get rid of them. So your last set of questions, if I use cup number 2 to pour directly into the renal pelvis, then what was cup number 2? Helpful hint, I skipped a part of the nephron because all you did was travel through it, right? Didn't really do anything. So what pours directly into the renal pelvis? And now some higher level thinking questions. Again, also on the sheet. If you started with more water than I started with, what would happen to the water ratio level of your urine? The water ratio level of what is in this bucket. If you started with less water, what would happen to the water urea ratio of the urine in your bladder? Next question. If the black beads in there represent some kind of drugs or toxins or something, explain why they were not reabsorbed with the nutrients. Why didn't they go back into your body? Why did you pee them out? And now, higher order thing, prediction for me. Predict whether or not drinking more water would prevent drugs from appearing in a urine drug test. Meaning, say you did drugs and you didn't want to get caught in a pee test, would drinking more water, a lot of water, prevent the drugs from showing up in the test? Explain why you think your answer is right. All right? Good luck on this, ladies and gentlemen, and I will see you in class. And now to get rid of the urine through the urethra and into the proper receptacle. This might take a while. I'll see you in class, guys.